Hi girls, this is what I want you all to work on for me for next week. I want you all to get a box and take apart the two sides. So you have two flat sides and you're going to rule up a square that is 10 inches by 9 inches. Right, so you can use an X-Acto knife to cut out the shape, but if you want to get help from your mummies or daddies to use the X-Acto knife, you can. So use a ruler to rule up the size that we need, which is what I am doing there for you right now. Rule up the size 10 inches by 9 inches. It looks crooked because of how I'm holding the cardboard, but I'm using a metal ruler and ruling up the size. So once I rule it up, I'm going to use my X-Acto knife and I'm using a metal ruler to trim the edges and make it nice and neat. And I'm doing 2 pieces of cardboard that size. So I will actually add to the group exactly what you need to have for this lesson. But this is what I want you all to prepare for me for our next class next week, Form 1s. So take your time now. You never have to cut right in and get it cut the first try, on the first try. You could actually pass the blade several times and then cut it. It takes it apart. So just remember that X-Acto knives are very sharp. That's why I said you all could get help. They usually come with a cover, so you want to make sure that you keep it covered. And like I mentioned before, I'm using a metal ruler, and you always cut away from your body. So meaning you cut on the right These side of the ruler. These knives come with a cover, so when you're not using them, as I mentioned before as well, you can do several and you have to be careful using these knives. That's why I'm using a metal ruler while I'm cutting. You don't have to dig into the cardboard and press hard for it to cut in one stroke. You could pull the X-Acto knife several times to cut it out. So since we need 2 of these sheets, I'm going to use the one that I just cut out and I'm going to put it on top of my second piece of cardboard. It makes it easier to get the dimensions. So see, I'm just going to hold it down on the second piece of board and use my pencil to draw up the size. Then I'm going to use my X-Acto knife and my ruler again, and I'm going to cut out that second piece of cardboard. So here is where I got my photograph that I want to use, and the normal size photographs, the smallest size photographs are usually 6 by 4 inches. So I'm leaving a little white border around my photograph and I'm cutting that out. And once I cut out my photo, I'm going to use one piece of the cardboard and rest the photo down like in the center of that piece of cardboard, just for placement. So I'm going to take my photo, rest it down in the middle, and I'm going to use a pencil and just mark off what we call crop lines or registration lines. This will help me cut out my window so that my picture could be placed on the reverse side of the cardboard. And we're not going to cut it out exact. That's why I left that white border. We're not going to cut it out exact because when we cut it out, we want to be able to tape the edges of the photograph on the back side of the first piece of cardboard. So I'm drawing up my little window here right now. And now I'm going to use my metal ruler and I'm going to cut out my window to make room for my photograph. So now our window is all cut out. See, I could remove my window. And then I'm going to take my photograph and I'm going to put it behind, and see, it covers the little white space, because what I'll do is I'll put tape on the edges on the back of my photos.